The only thing I kept thinking during this movie is that Robbie from Victorious would make a great boyfriend for one of the mutants in this movie. You'll see when you watch it. New Mutants marks the end of an era, as this is our final Fox-related X-Men movie that we'll ever get. From now on, all the X-Men movies will be purely made by Disney. In this Battle of the Curtain entitled New Mutants, we follow a group of mutants who find themselves in an asylum said to help them with their powers, deal with their trauma, all in the hopes of making them well-rounded citizens to be out in the world. However, when things start going bump in the night, they realize they're in this place for a more sinister reason. And that's all pretty much it without any spoilers to you guys. This is a spoiler-free review. Man, it feels so good to be doing movie reviews again. Let me start off with the things I really did enjoy about New Mutants. For one, this movie was never ever going to get made by Disney. You'll know that off right away in watching this film, that it feels very refreshing from a lot of things that have the Marvel stamp on them. The thing that I think really shined about this New Mutants movie was some of the more mature themes in here that we hadn't seen done before. We have great characters in this movie that actually deal with the trauma of the power, some that even think about offing off their lives. Even just some of the vocabulary that is thrown around in this movie are words that would never be said in an MCU movie. There's even an unexpected relationship that blossoms in New Mutants that I actually found very welcoming and was one of the more enjoyable parts of the film. A lot of that has to do to the actual actors and characters involved in this movie, because they weren't half bad at all. You have Anna Taylor-Joy, who plays this sort of badass, the get out of my way kind of girl. You have Macy Williams, who's this very endearing, sweet, innocent girl. They're bonding throughout the movie, and the way they get closer and closer when things start getting darker and darker throughout the film helps the viewer stay along for the ride. But when it really comes down to it, it does fall to just being another generic film. Don't get me wrong, I can totally understand why there's going to be people out there who really enjoy this movie and had a lot of fun with it and are sad that we will never see some sort of sequel done to this. Don't get your hopes up that the Marvel Cinematic Universe will try and find a way to fit these characters into their movies, because I just don't see that happening. One of the things that really fell flat to me is they tried to go for this horror element in the film that I was actually really excited for. There was people who were behind this movie that were really comparing it and drawing inspiration from Nightmare on Elm Street 3, entitled Dream Warriors, that, hey, that is my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street, as one of my top favorite horror movies of all time. And when you watch the movie, yeah, you can really see the inspiration of where that came from, because there's a lot of dream sequences, a lot of the characters facing their own fears. I wouldn't be surprised if this movie was never even supposed to be a New Mutants film. It was actually supposed to be some sort of Nightmare on Elm Street remake, because you can see that vibe going in the movie. But unfortunately, by going through this horror route, they inherited more of the bad tropes and cliches instead of reinventing it and bringing something new to the table. There's a lot of build-up that leads up to nothing, a lot of stuff that moves around, a lot of scares that come off generic and are just monsters made out of CGI. I also was really lacking in the fact of an actual villain in this movie, because there is something that all the members are fighting against or fighting for, but the presence of a villain is really lacking in this film, that by the end you kind of feel like this whole film felt uneventful, like it didn't really lead up to much, and there wasn't a clear person or individual for the characters to gang up on. Aside from the characters being likable though, their backstories are nothing to drag on about, especially because they each get their own monologue moment where they all sit down, stare off into space, get a little tear in their eye, and talk about how horrible it is to have their powers. After about the fourth or fifth person that tells their backstory, you're just kind of over it, and it's like, all right, we get it. You're all having tragic backgrounds. Can we see some more action? Can we see some more of the powers come forward? This movie will still have my respect for doing something completely different and feeling unlike most of these mutant movies that we've gotten before. But at the end of the day, I think people still want to feel very satisfied when leaving a movie, and I just don't think a big chunk of the audience will come out satisfied from this movie. So for New Mutants, I'm gonna give action 3 stars. The action is cool when it does actually happen on screen, but you just really don't feel the stakes when they're actually fighting, when you figure out who the true villain is. Comedy in the film, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. There are a couple of chuckles and laughs throughout the chemistry of the characters, but at the end of the day, it's not really supposed to be a comedy or make you laugh. Drama in the film, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I felt like they could have done so much more with this rich story and why these characters are in this asylum, but it's really no different than all the other X-Men movies where kids are taken to an asylum. Horror in the film, I'll give it 2 stars. There were some interesting looking creatures caricatures, but like I said, they inherit more of the tropes and cliches of horror films than actually trying to do something new and refreshing. Suspense the film, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. You're rarely on the edge of your seat in this film. You know where it's headed. And towards the end, you are just kind of waiting for it to end. Casual fans, I'm gonna give it a B-. Cinephiles, I'm gonna give it a C+. And critically, I'm going to give it a C-. New Mutants is worth a rent.
That'll do, Donkey. That'll do.
But that is just my opinion on New Mutants, guys. It's so great to just be having movies coming back into the theaters. Next movie I have up is Tenet. Can't wait to see Robert Pattinson in that. But if you guys saw New Mutants this weekend, let me know down below your opinions. Also, I'll be doing a spoiler review of New Mutants on the podcast channel Film Stripper. So if you guys want my more in-depth opinion and want to know exactly what went down in that movie, go ahead and subscribe over there. But as always, guys, follow me on Twitter at 3C Film Review. My name is Chris. Take care.